Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and we're going to look today at loose graded vintage Star Wars figures, AFA and CAS. I don't have any UKG, I don't think. I do have some baggies that were graded that I want to go through. Most of these were auctions, although I do have a few buy it now situations, trying to fill out the video pile while I am away on vacation. So if you're watching this right now, I pre-made this video just for you. Let's go ahead and take a closer look. We're going to start off with an absolute heater from a friend of mine. This was a vinyl cape Jawa graded AFA 80. New case style. This was graded according to the Certificate of Authenticity in March of 2019. And it did sell for $3,300, the asking price. And that's about right. It might be a little high, but, you know, the vinyl cape Jawas are selling anywhere from, I'd say, $2,800 all the way up to $3,500 for an AFA 85. So $3,300, I wouldn't say it's the worst overpay in the world. I certainly overpaid for mine when I had mine originally. I think I sold my AFA 85 old case style for $3,350. I'm going on memory. So this was an AFA 80 and it sold for $3,300, admittedly with the newer case style. Beautiful example. And congrats on the sale there. Here was an interesting one. This was down in Australia. It was a CAS 85 Plus. Nothing too special about it. It was a Hong Kong COO, so very standard example. And this one sold in an auction for $336, which I would argue is a pretty high number. Part of it might be because it was down in Australia, and Australia, you know, you guys who are watching that are down in Australia, you guys can fill me in the comments as you're leaving me a like as to whether it's just because of the exchange rate. Is it because the lack of inventory down there and it's hard to get stuff shipped to Australia and New Zealand? But, you know, if this was in the U.S., I would argue it probably would have sold for closer to $200 to $225, somewhere in that ballpark at the top end. But, you know, it was a CAS 85 Plus, nice high grade, but much higher than I expected it to finally go for. $336 on that one. Next up was a CAS 75 Plus blue snaggletooth. No discoloration to the torso on it. Pretty nice example overall. Maybe a little bit of wear to the hands. The boot obviously had some wear to it on one of the feet. But, you know, the grading companies grade blue snags very difficult. They grade it very, very tough. Whether it's AFA, UKG, or CAS. And I thought for a 75 Plus, it was listed at $545. That's what it sold for. I thought that was a pretty fair price given that it did not have any discoloration to the torso. Usually when you start getting into those 70s and 75s, you start to see the greenish kind of hue to the torso. I think the main culprit as to why it got the 75 Plus was obviously the boot and then a little bit of, you know, the wear around the hands. So I thought for what it was, that was a very fair price. Congratulations on that one. This seller had some really nice, fairly high grade, but very common figures. And it's just interesting to see what that market is doing because in general, even AFA 85s for fairly common figures, they seem to have kind of flatlined. They're just not moving at all, if not moving down in price. This was a Hong Kong Boba Fett, AFA 85. Again, a very common figure, no special variation. It wasn't like the dark green or light green chest. This was just the standard green chest. AFA 85 Hong Kong, $212.50, which, you know, that's towards the lower end of the range that we've been seeing lately. They also had a China COO Stormtrooper, and you could maybe argue it's either lighting from the bad photos or what, but you know, it does seem like this one's got a little bit of discoloration to the limbs, the arms and the legs, versus the torso color. So it's very faint, but it's there. And it is the China COO, which maybe AFA grades those a little looser versus like the Hong Kongs, where the color differentiation between the limbs and the torso should be minimal, if none. I don't know how they grade China COOs, whether they grade that maybe on a looser scale. But that one did sell for $197.56, which I thought was a pretty fair price for what it was. Here was the dark blue emblem Star Destroyer Commander, AFA 85. There's the label on that one, Hong Kong COO again. And that one sold for $181.50. Again, a very fair price. You could maybe argue again that it's slightly overgraded. You can see some discoloration on the silver portion to the belt buckle and maybe a little bit of rub on the actual front belt buckle. But overall, a very nice figure, the dark blue emblem, and that's referring to the chest emblem right there. That can come in either dark blue or light blue. 180, 150. Again, that's a price I'd pay in a heartbeat. Here is an AFA 85 Hong Kong Hoth Snow Trooper. That one sold for $164.40. And again, maybe slight. It's very slight. I would argue this is even more slight of a color differentiation versus that China Stormtrooper. And you know, you're kind of nitpicking, I think, at this point, but there are very discerning collectors that want no discoloration or color difference, I should say, between the limbs and the chest piece. But I don't know. To me, I think that's a pretty nice figure for that price, 165-ish. Here was a Hollow Eyes Silver IG88 graded AFA 85, 112.50. Really good price on that one. And we've talked about this in the past, but for the Hong Kong Silver colored IG88, the non-Hollow Eyes is the harder one to find. That's been my experience. The Hollow Eyes Silver is the most common. So again, this is another common figure that sold for a really good price, $112.50. That to me is kind of a steal of a price for a common one. Another steal was this Flesh Face Curved Eyes Imperial Commander graded AFA 85. And this was a Hong Kong. It sold for $91. Man, that is a really low price. And that's every bit of an 85, if you ask me. So someone got a good deal on that one. Here was a Hong Kong AFA 85 Imperial TIE Fighter pilot. Again, a very common figure. The Hong Kong is the most common. There's the China, there's the No COO, there's the Spanish PBP, the Lily Letty. But the Hong Kong is easily the most common, $111.50. That is the lowest price I've seen in a long time for an AFA 85 Hong Kong Imperial TIE Fighter pilot with the new K-Style AFA 85. So again, you know, I think maybe because the population report is freely available now, people can go to AFA's website, cgagrading.com, type in the certification number and get a better idea of how many of these there are out there. And I think for the 85s and below, there's a lot of them out there. So the price maybe will go down even further for 85s. And then I think for 85 pluses, 90s, or God forbid, a 90 plus, you're going to be paying a lot more than maybe you would have 6 or 9 months ago when the population report wasn't out there. If you type in one of these figures and you see, hey, it's an AFA 90 and there's 10 of them out there total on the population report for loose graded for that particular character, it's just a hypothetical. I think you're going to pay more now versus back then when the population report wasn't available and people had no idea how many of them were graded at 90, so that maybe they wouldn't spend up for it. So maybe that's just, again, a hypothetical, you know, me hypothesizing as to what's happening for these fairly common figures in near mint plus condition. But, you know, here's an AT driver, red logo, archival case, AFA 85. You would think that would go 200-ish, but it went for 172.50. So another good deal there. Here was a Taiwan AFA 85 Biker Scout. Now, I expect Biker Scouts to command big money because I just don't see them very often in an 85 grade. And I didn't look up the population report. Maybe we'll do that in another loose graded video for common items next time. I'll try to look it up on the population report and see how many of them there are out there. And if we get some 85 pluses and 90s, maybe we'll see, hey, there's 10 of them out there, so it sold for $350, you know. And anyway, an 85 plus archival case, new case style, it sold for $242.67, and I kind of wanted this one, to be honest with you. I think I had a bid set up on my Snipe software for $265. Would that have taken it home? I don't know, but it was a Taiwan. It's a COO I wouldn't mind having. But anyway, I think that's a good future video if I can get a lot more data and kind of compile it and show you what it sold for, and then turn it over to the cgagrading.com website and see what the population report says for that particular figure. Some baggies that were graded. Here's an 85 graded B-Wing pilot baggie, and I do think that the prices on these particular examples suffered from bad photos. If you're a seller and you got a baggie, I don't think this photo cuts it, all right? No offense if you happen to be the one selling this, but I think you would have gotten a lot more money if you had used like a light box or something to kind of really show it off. But this one, the photos did not do it justice if it was truly an AFA 85. $86, not a great price there. Here was a Tebow, again, cloudy, blurry photo, but it was an AFA 85 Baggie. It sold for $133. And then the same seller also had an ESB-C Baggie for Lando Calrissian, admittedly in only an 80 grade. And I personally don't like how AFA grades baggies. I just think that the baggie cases even now don't look that great. I prefer CAS and how UKG does it with their deluxe cases. But anyway, this ESB Baggie for Lando did sell for $153.49. All three of those prices I think were pretty low. Here was an example of that though, right? And admittedly, it's a more desirable baggie than the three I just showed you, okay? So I know it's not apples to apples, but look how nice the photos look, right? You can really see the color pop on the baggie. It's an SWC baggie for Greedo in an AFA 85 plus. So it's high grade too. You know, it's not apples to apples, but you know, if you're going to pay big money for a baggie, archival case AFA 85 plus for an SWC baggie, you want to know what you're buying, especially if you're asking $400 for it. And the lighting in this photo really captures the green of Greedo and the bright blue of that SWC baggie. I just think that you're doing yourself a disservice if you're trying to sell a baggie without using a light box like this one did. But, you know, it sold for $400. And again, I'm not saying it's comparable to those three baggies that I just showed you, but this seller clearly knows how to market his baggies when they're graded like this. $400 took that home. Another baggie that was a beautiful example from the same seller was an AFA 85 Nyan Num baggie. And this one had all the paperwork, the Return of the Jedi, the Star Wars saga continues. And then you also had Nyan Num and kind of a description of the figure there. So this is a pretty desirable baggie set. Big box on that one. That one also sold for $400. So big number there. A couple of graded examples that sold that I did not see get listed, but they sold pretty quick. And that was an AFA 85 loose graded Droids R2-D2 pop-up lightsaber. Wow, what a gem there. First time I've seen a loose graded AFA 85 for the R2-D2 Droids pop-up saber in a long time. And I know of some Patreon subscribers that were looking for this particular example, and I certainly would have sent it to you guys in a Patreon buy it now alert if I had seen it, but it sold before I even saw it. $1,500 took that home. It's a big number. It's a big number, admittedly, but it's one you don't see in that high of a grade very often. And then, of course, we've got his counterpart, two different examples sold for the Droids C-3PO. This one was a CAS 90 grade, and it was listed for $1,200. The best offer accepted on that was $980. And then you compare that to the AFA 80 archival case, new case style, that sold in an auction, and that one sold for $710. So $710 for an AFA 80, and then this one sold for $980, and that was a CAS 90. So that gives you a pretty tight price range to aim for if you happen to be looking for a loose graded Droids C-3PO. Thank you, as always, for watching. Just a quick video to give you an update on loose graded AFA and CAS graded gems. Please leave me a like if you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thanks again, and I'll be back soon.